You've walked 3 times a week for a year. Same route, same pace, barely winded. But here's what nobody tells you. That feeling is the trap. What if your cardio's declining anyway, underneath a routine that feels fine? Stay, and you'll know exactly which zone you're in. I'm Atlas Reed, subscribe, you belong here. Point 1. Here's something most men over 60 never question. They've decided walking a few times a week means their cardio system is handled. It isn't. Not entirely. And the part that's slipping doesn't show up on a walk around the block. It shows up the day you need more than that. I didn't learn this lesson watching a monitor in a gym. I learned pieces of it watching my own father, a man who'd been physically powerful his whole life, go down reaching for a towel rail that wasn't there. Strength wasn't the thing that failed him that morning. And here's what surprised me when I went looking into the research afterward. Your aerobic capacity, your actual ability to keep moving without running out of gas, declines on a schedule whether you notice it or not, somewhere around 10% a decade once you pass your late 20s, according to researchers who've tracked it in everyone from sedentary adults to lifelong competitive rowers. Even the rowers who never stopped training still lost ground. Just slower, closer to 5% a decade once you pass your late 20s, according to researchers who've tracked it in everyone from sedentary adults to lifelong competitive rowers. Even the rowers who never stopped training still lost ground. Just slower, closer to 5% a decade instead of 10. Think of it like a car that's been sitting in a garage, engine idling fine, dashboard lights all green. You don't find out the horsepower's gone until you need to merge onto a highway at speed. That's what cardio decline is for most men, invisible until the moment it isn't. There's research behind every part of this, so nobody has to take it on faith. And that number isn't there to scare you. This isn't built to alarm. It's built to inform one decision. So, if cardio capacity erodes quietly, no matter what you do, the real question isn't whether you can stop it. It's whether you're training it in a way your joints can actually sustain for the next 20 years. Point 2. That question matters more than it sounds like because most men solve cardio the same way they solved it at 30, running stairs for high-impact classes, and their joints send the bill years later. The alternative isn't doing less. It's doing it without the pounding. Here's a number worth knowing about yourself, not just about older adults in general. A healthy, community-dwelling man in his 60s or 70s typically covers somewhere between 400 and 580 meters on a 6-minute walk test. That's a brisk, sustained walk, not a stroll. If you want to know where you actually stand, that's a real benchmark, not a guess. And the research on low-impact modalities, walking, swimming, cycling, water-based movement, is consistent. You get real aerobic benefit without the joint stress that ends up sidelining men who push too hard too fast on hard pavement. Now run this through a simple test. Would a man feel cheated finding this out for free? Or would he say it was worth paying for? A benchmark he can test himself against in 6 minutes using nothing but a hallway and a stopwatch that clears the bar. Vague advice to walk more wouldn't. So here's where it gets specific. A structured low-impact walking session isn't just walking slower. It's walking with intervals, pace changes that raise your heart rate without raising the impact on your knees and hips. The same principle behind why swimmers and cyclists maintain remarkable cardio capacity well into their 70s without the wear and tear injuries runners accumulate. The technique is simple enough to do in your living room, but there's a piece almost nobody structures correctly on their own. And it's the difference between a walk that maintains you and one that actually rebuilds capacity you've already lost. Point 3, that piece, how to structure pace, duration, and recovery. So a low-impact walk does real aerobic work instead of just passing the time, which is exactly the structured low-impact stamina-building protocol that Still Standing After 60, the complete independence system walks through, is linked in the description. If you're watching this on your TV right now, there's a QR code on screen. Scan it, and it'll take you straight there. That's the only mention you'll get from me in this video, so keep watching, because we're not done. Because knowing how to structure the walk still leaves one thing unaddressed. The thing that determines whether you keep doing this 6 months from now or quietly stop in November as most resolutions do. Point 4. Here's what rarely gets talked about in a walking workout video. Pacing yourself by feel is nearly worthless if you don't know what you're actually feeling for. Most men either go too easy, a stroll that never challenges anything, or they push into a burn that makes the whole habit miserable within 2 weeks. Neither one builds the aerobic base we've been talking about. There's a specific way to gauge effort during a low-impact session that doesn't require a heart rate monitor, doesn't require math, and takes less than a breath to check. And it's the reason some men can sustain a walking program for years while others quit by February. I'm not going to walk you through the full method here because it needs a bit more than a passing mention to actually stick. But here's what I want you to do right now in the next 30 seconds, wherever you're sitting. Try this right now. Don't stand up, just do it seated. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4 and try to speak one full sentence out loud at a normal pace before you need to gasp for the next breath. If you comfortably got the whole sentence out, that's one zone. If you had to cut it short, that's a different one entirely. Notice which one happened. That single answer tells you more about how you should actually be pacing your next walk than any generic walk 30 minutes a day advice ever will. And it's different for almost every man watching this. Point 5. That breath test is a small piece of something bigger. The systems that keep a man moving well past 60 aren't separate from each other. The cardio capacity that's quietly declining, the joints that need low-impact movement instead of pounding, the pacing that determines whether a habit survives past week 3, none of it works in isolation, and none of it requires punishing yourself to rebuild. None of this asks you to panic about a number. It asks for one decision: to train the system that's actually eroding in a way your body can sustain for the next 2 decades, instead of repeating what worked at 30 and wondering why it doesn't anymore. A man who does this isn't chasing a number on a fitness tracker. He's protecting his ability to keep up. With grandkids, with travel, with a life that doesn't shrink to fit a bad knee or a winded walk to the mailbox. That's not a workout goal. That's just who he is. That breath pacing method, knowing exactly which effort zone you're in without a single gadget, closes the loop we opened at the start of this video. Cardio decline is invisible until you build a way to actually see it. Everything we covered today, the 6-minute benchmark, the low-impact structure, the pacing method, it's one piece of a bigger picture. And the full walking and stamina protocol, with every interval and progression laid out so you're never guessing, is what Still Standing After 60, the complete independent system, covers in depth. It's linked in the description below, and if you're on TV, the QR code's on screen now. Here's the honest reason to start this week instead of someday. That 10% a decade decline doesn't pause while you decide. Every month of low-impact, well-paced walking you put in now is capacity you don't have to fight to get back later. And the men who wait until it's harder tend to wait a lot longer than they meant to. If this is the kind of training intelligence you want every week, subscribe. We put out videos weekly, and every one is built for men serious about staying independent. I'm Atlas Reed. Keep doing the work.